When both you and the narcissist fall silent, the world does not suddenly become peaceful. It erupts because in that instant, someone finally loses control, and it is not you. Many people assume mutual silence means the story has ended, but the reality is far more unsettling. This is the moment the narcissist begins their true psychological spiral, and the moment your healing genuinely begins. Stay with this, because what unfolds next is the part no one warns you about. If this already feels uncomfortably familiar, remain here. You need to understand the psychological ground you are stepping onto, because understanding it is how you permanently break the cycle. When both you and the narcissist stop reaching out, the first thing that happens on their side is what could be called a recalibration phase. It is quiet, internal, and largely invisible. Most people miss it because it unfolds behind the scenes long before the narcissist takes any visible action. When you go quiet, you experience it as an emotional shift, a boundary, a movement toward recovery. The narcissist does not see your silence that way. They treat it as information. Your lack of response becomes something to analyze, not something to respect. They start examining how they lost their hold, not how they wounded you. Narcissists do not reflect in the way emotionally healthy people do. Instead, they calculate. Did you become distracted? Are you attempting to punish them? Has someone else entered the picture? Are you testing their reaction? They search for angles, motives, potential threats. Your silence turns into a riddle they feel compelled to solve because uncertainty unsettles them. During this recalibration, they may not contact you at all. Their silence is not indifference, it is positioning. They might monitor your online presence, check mutual connections, or observe who interacts with you. They are collecting clues, waiting for your next emotional signal. Narcissists often believe that anyone they once controlled will eventually circle back. So your quiet is not processed as closure, it is viewed as temporary resistance. That is why they do not immediately panic. They wait, assuming you will break the silence first, just as you have before. They rely on the conditioning they built in you, the guilt, the fear of tension, the longing for harmony. They expect you to bend. When you do not, their recalibration intensifies. They begin to sense their influence slipping, and that is when the threat feels real to them. Silence in their world is never neutral. It is either a chance to regain dominance or a signal that their ego is in danger. The longer you remain quiet, the more they feel the ground shift beneath them, because your silence disrupts the power structure they relied on. When both sides enter silence, the emotional experience is radically different for you than it is for them. You feel loss, they feel inconvenience. When you stop contacting them, you are often carrying the weight of everything that occurred. You are sorting through emotional debris, broken trust, unanswered questions, and mental exhaustion. You may feel grief, withdrawal, confusion, even misplaced guilt. You are mourning not only the relationship, but the version of yourself that endured so much. Your silence comes from saturation. You have reached a threshold where your mind and body cannot tolerate more turmoil. You are attempting to reclaim space, dignity, and clarity. That internal process is heavy. It affects your sleep, your confidence, your memories, your identity. The narcissist does not process silence through emotional depth. They do not sit with the loss the way you do. They do not reflect on what failed, how they caused harm, or what needs to shift. Their first reaction is rooted in disruption. Your silence interrupts their routine, not their heart. They were accustomed to having access to your attention, your reactions, your apologies, your caretaking, even your arguments. All of it reinforced their sense of importance. When you go quiet, that stream of validation abruptly stops. This does not shatter them emotionally, it irritates them. They experience the absence of supply the way someone experiences losing a service they depended on. It is an inconvenience, a frustration. They are not thinking that they lost someone meaningful. They are thinking about why you are not responding. Your grief and their irritation exist in separate psychological realities. You are grieving the connection while they are evaluating their access. You are rebuilding yourself while they are calculating how your silence impacts their ego. You feel emptiness. They feel interruption. As time passes, this contrast becomes clearer. You begin to see how heavy the emotional burden truly was and how much of yourself you suppressed to maintain peace. They begin to question why something that once worked so easily, your responsiveness, no longer functions. Your silence pulls you inward toward reflection and recovery, while it pushes them toward entitlement and annoyance. The weight you carry is profound. Their discomfort is tied not to losing you, but to losing the convenience of your compliance. For the narcissist, silence feels like defiance. They view relationships through dominance, not mutuality. When you no longer respond, no longer initiate, no longer provide attention, it disrupts the hierarchy they believed was established. They interpret your quiet as rebellion, even if your intention was simply self-preservation. In their mind, silence is resistance. It signals that their influence may be fading. Silence wounds their ego more deeply than arguments ever could. Arguments still center them. Emotional reactions still confirm their relevance. Even anger proves they matter in your internal world. But silence removes them from the stage. That removal threatens the fragile narrative they depend on. Your quiet forces them to confront the possibility that they are not as indispensable or dominant as they imagined. Narcissists struggle with ambiguity, and your silence creates exactly that, a space they cannot control or decode. Instead of seeing it as a healthy boundary, they frame it as provocation. Their internal dialogue distorts. They may label you disrespectful, ungrateful, manipulative. They may assume you are playing a game to elicit a reaction. Their ego convinces them your silence is a tactic rather than exhaustion or self-protection. Some shift into competition, viewing the silence as a battle they must win. Others cast themselves as betrayed, rewriting the narrative to protect their self-image. They do not seek to understand your experience. They seek to defend their identity. As this tension grows, their sense of control weakens. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting insecurity they cannot tolerate. Rather than sit with that discomfort, they construct stories that restore their superiority. They may assume you will eventually return because you always did, or they may begin planning ways to punish you emotionally for stepping outside the role they assigned you. In their world, silence suggests something intolerable, that you may no longer be under their psychological influence. Internally, your silence creates space. Internally, it creates exposure for them. Narcissists build identity externally through reactions and validation from others. You were part of that system. Your responses reinforce their sense of power. When you disengage, you interrupt the mechanism. That interruption exposes their dependence on your engagement. Without your reactions, they have nothing to manipulate, nothing to push against, nothing to cite as proof of dominance. The absence threatens not because of deep love, but because it destabilizes the structure that allowed them to feel significant. Restlessness grows. They may replay past conversations, searching for missed signs. They may wonder if someone replaced them. They scan for ways to reassert control, even if they remain outwardly silent. The lack of visibility into your world unsettles them. They are no longer at the center. That loss of centrality is intolerable. Arrogance can shift into anxiety. Entitlement can shift into suspicion. Certainty can shift into instability, all triggered by your absence. When their silence fails to draw you back, compensatory behaviors often emerge. Hoovering, baiting, triangulation. These are not random acts. They are strategies designed to restore influence. Hoovering begins when they realize you are not returning on your own. They may send a gentle message, evoke nostalgia, fabricate a crisis, appear remorseful. The tone adapts to whatever might work. The objective is not authentic repair. It is reinstating control. If vulnerability feels too risky, they may move to baiting. Baiting aims to provoke reaction. They might post something intended to spark jealousy, send a dismissive comment, create drama that pressures you to respond. Any reaction restores relevance. Silence removes their leverage, so they attempt to provoke emotional movement. If that fails, triangulation can follow, introducing another person to create competition or insecurity, flaunting a new relationship, implying someone else appreciates them more, portraying themselves as victim. The goal is displacement, to make you question your value and re-enter the dynamic to defend your place. These actions are not evidence of love. They reveal dependence on external supply to stabilize identity. While they cycle through these strategies, something different unfolds within you. Your nervous system, conditioned by unpredictability, slowly begins to calm. At first, quiet may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Your body was trained for hypervigilance. You anticipated moods, monitored emotional weather, braced for impact. Silence may initially feel wrong because chaos became normal. That response is physiological, not weakness. Over time, the fog begins to lift. Your thoughts shift when you are no longer preparing for the next manipulation. Sleep may improve. Moments of stillness return. This is recalibration of a different kind. Your system recognizing safety. Healing begins without needing their apology or acknowledgement. Emotional energy, once consumed by their crises, becomes available again. You rediscover clarity. You feel your own emotions without distortion. You make decisions rooted in your values rather than fear of reaction. As your quiet strengthens you, theirs destabilizes them. You regain parts of yourself that were muted. They feel parts of their constructed identity slipping. What feels peaceful and necessary for you feels threatening to them. The longer the silence continues, the more evident the imbalance becomes. The quiet that frees you gradually unravels them internally, and in that contrast lies the truth. Your silence is not emptiness, it is reclamation.